The wind in the marina didn't just blow, it shoved. It was a humid, salt-heavy force that rattled the rigging of 100 sailboats, creating a ceaseless, metallic chorus. Halyards slapped against aluminum masts with a rhythmic, frantic clanging that would have driven a lesser man to distraction. To a tourist, it might have sounded like the start of an adventure. To me, it sounded like static interference on a radio channel nobody was answering. I stood on the floating dock, the wood shifting slightly under my boots with the tide, my duffel bag dug into my shoulder, a physical weight to match the mental one I was trying to put down. I was Coleson Walker, 30 years old. And for the last 5 years, my job had been to talk people off ledges, out of bank vaults, and away from detonators. I was a crisis negotiator for the Chicago PD. I knew how to lower a heart rate with a whisper. I knew how to trade time for life. I knew the precise intonation required to make a desperate man hesitate, but I didn't know how to sail. And right now, staring at the maze of white fiberglass and tangled ropes, I felt a rare spike of disorientation. I was out of my element. There were no walls here, no perimeters to secure, just the endless, indifferent water. "You're standing on the line, rookie," the voice came from below, sharp and gritty, like sandpaper on teak. I looked down. I was standing next to a 40-foot sloop named the Kestrel. She was an older boat, her lines classic and sweeping, but she looked tired. The white fiberglass was scuffed at the gunwales, a testament to years of hard docking, and the teak deck was gray with age and sun. Coiling across the dock near my boot was a yellow polypropylene line, which I was currently pinning to the wood. I stepped back, lifting my boot. "Sorry." A woman popped her head up from the companionway. She climbed out into the cockpit, wiping grease from her hands onto a rag. She was roughly 38, with skin the color of polished mahogany and hair pulled back in a messy, wind-tangled braid that defied gravity. She wore a faded navy polo shirt with a frayed collar and board shorts that had seen better years. Her eyes were dark, sharp, and assessing me with the same critical gaze a mechanic gives a stalling engine. She didn't look like a customer service representative. She looked like someone who argued with hurricanes. "Coleson Walker?" she asked. "That's me," I said, "here for the Coastal Skipper Certification, the intensive course. I'm Captain Rivera." "Halo." She didn't offer a hand. She tossed me a fender, a heavy white rubber bumper. "Catch. We're casting off in 10. Tide waits for no one, and neither do I." I caught the fender against my chest. It smelled of algae, diesel, and old salt. "I thought we started with a classroom session," I said, checking my watch. "Safety briefing, theory, knot tying basics. The ocean is the classroom," she said, disappearing back below deck. "And the theory is, if you fall in, you get wet. If you get hit by the boom, you get a concussion. Stow your gear in the starboard cabin. Don't touch the navigation table. And for the love of God, don't wear those boots on my deck unless the soles are non-marking." I looked at my boots. They were tactical, non-marking, Vibram soles designed for silence and grip. The boat shifted under my weight. It felt alive, unstable. For a man who made his living on solid ground and concrete logic, the constant motion was instantly unsettling. It triggered a vestibular panic. I hadn't expected the feeling that the floor was about to drop out. I stowed my bag in the small, wood-paneled cabin she had indicated. It was tight, smelling of lemon oil and old books. Efficient. No wasted space. Every inch had a purpose. It reminded me of a tactical command center, but warmer. Lived in. There was a photo taped to the bulkhead, an older man holding a giant marlin. When I came back up to the cockpit, Halo was at the helm, her hands moving over the wheel with practiced ease. She was watching the wind indicator at the top of the mast. Her eyes narrowed against the glare. "Do you know why you're here, Walker?" she shouted over the rising wind. "To learn to sail?" I said, grabbing a handrail as the boat rocked. "No," she said, not looking at me. "People come here to learn to sail because they want a hobby. They want to drink wine on a sunset cruise and wear boat shoes. You booked the accelerated 3-week intensive. You paid extra for the solo instruction. You brought tactical gear. That means you're running from something or running to something. Which is it?" I looked at her. She was direct. No preamble. No social lubricant. I liked that. It cut through the noise. "I talk for a living," I said, usually to people who are screaming, or crying, or threatening to kill someone. I wanted to go somewhere where the only noise is the wind. She looked at me then, a long, measuring look. She saw the tension in my jaw, the way I scanned the horizon like it was a threat vector, the way my hands were already clenching the rail too tight. She saw the burnout I thought I had hidden behind my sunglasses. Fair enough, she said. But the wind screams too, Walker. And it doesn't listen to reason. It doesn't care about your logic or your empathy. Grab that winch handle. Let's see if you can listen better than you talk. The first week was not a vacation. It was a demolition of my ego. Halo ran the Kestrel like a boot camp. She was a drill sergeant in flip-flops. She demanded precision in a world that was inherently chaotic. Haul, she'd command, her voice cutting through the spray. Grind! Ease! No, that's the halyard, I said the sheet. Do you want to drop the sail on our heads? My hands, used to holding a phone or a pen, were blistered and raw within 2 days. My back ached from hunching over the winches. I was exhausted, but it was a good exhaustion. It was physical. It cleared the static in my head. For the first time in months, I wasn't dreaming about the bridge in Chicago. I wasn't hearing the kid's voice. I was dreaming about knots, bowlines, clove hitches, figure eights, sheet bends. Halo was a mystery. She was a brilliant sailor. She could read the water like I read a transcript, predicting gusts before they hit just by looking at the texture of the waves, but she was constantly on edge. When we were docked in the evenings, the boat rocking gently in the slip, she was always on her phone. Her voice, usually so commanding on the water, would drop to a low, tense whisper. I tried not to listen. Privacy was a currency I respected. But the boat was small, and the fiberglass hull conducted sound like a tin can. I need an extension, I heard her say one evening, while I was pretending to read a navigation manual in the cockpit. Just 2 weeks. The charter season is starting. I have a client now. I'll have the payment. There was a pause. She listened. Her hand gripped the edge of the chart table until her knuckles were white. You can't do that, she hissed. It's my home. It's my father's boat. I know what the contract says, but the engine repair set me back. Just give me until the end of the month. She hung up and slammed the phone onto the chart table. She stood there for a moment, her head bowed, breathing hard. I saw her shoulders shaking, just once, before she stiffened and poured herself a glass of water. I didn't ask. In my line of work, you don't ask questions until you've established a baseline. You wait for the opening, you wait for the pressure to build until they need to release it. On Friday of the first week, we were practicing tacking in the bay. The wind was picking up, whitecaps forming on the waves like jagged teeth. The sky was a bruise of purple and gray. Ready about, she yelled. Ready, I shouted back, poised at the winch, my feet braced against the cockpit bench. Leo. She spun the wheel. The bow crossed the wind. The booms swung across the deck with a violent whoosh. The jib sail flapped wildly, a chaotic thunder of canvas that sounded like gunshots. Faster, she yelled. You're letting the sail luff. Tension, Walker. Tension is your friend. Crank it. I jammed the handle into the winch and ground it. My shoulders burned. I pulled the jib sheet tight, watching the sail fill. Thwack. The sail snapped full, catching the wind. The boat heeled over, slicing through the water at 7 knots. The chaos vanished, replaced by the humming vibration of speed, the silence of efficiency. Halo smiled. It was the first time I'd seen it. It changed her face completely, softening the hard lines around her eyes and taking 10 years off her age. It was a glimpse of the woman underneath the captain. Not bad, she said, nodding at the set of the sail. For a negotiator. I leaned back, catching my breath. You profiled me. I Googled you, she corrected. Coleson Walker, the voice of reason. You talked that guy off the bridge in Chicago last year. It was on the news. They said you stayed out there for 6 hours in the freezing rain. I listened to him off the bridge, I said, wiping salt spray from my forehead. There's a difference. People usually just want to be heard. Well, out here, you can't negotiate with a squall. You have to handle it. You have to anticipate it. She engaged the autopilot and moved next to me. The boat pitched as we hit a wake from a passing powerboat. She didn't stumble. She just adjusted her stance, her knees acting as shock absorbers. She moved with the boat, not against it. Here, she said, reaching for the line I was holding. You're gripping it like it's a weapon. You're strangling it. It's a connection to the wind. You have to feel the tension, not force it. She put her hands over mine. Her skin was rough, calloused, hot from the sun. She stood close, her body pressing lightly against my back to stabilize us against the tilt of the deck. Hold me, she said. I froze. My heart skipped a beat, a reaction I hadn't trained for. The line, Walker, she laughed, a dry, throaty sound near my ear. Hold the line against the winch self-tailer, while I show you the ropes. Literally, she guided my hands. Feel that vibration? That humming? That's the sail telling you it's happy. If it shudders, it's starving for air. If it pulls too hard, it's overpowered. You have to listen with your hands. I closed my eyes. I focused on the tactile sensation. The vibration of the rope, the heat of her hands on mine, the smell of salt and sunscreen on her skin, the way her breathing synced with the rhythm of the waves. I feel it, I said quietly. Good, she whispered. Now let it go. Slowly. I eased it. The boat flattened out slightly, finding a smoother groove through the water. The speed increased. She stepped back. The warmth of her contact vanished, leaving the sea air feeling colder than before. I missed the weight of her hands immediately. You're getting it, she said, moving back to the helm, her face turned away from me. Maybe you won't die after all. The trouble arrived on land the following Tuesday. We pulled into the Marina after a long day of navigation drills. The sun was setting, painting the sky in bruised purples and oranges. As we tied up to the slip, I saw a man in a crisp white uniform standing by the power pedestal. He held a clipboard and had the posture of a man who enjoyed enforcing rules. He was tapping a pen against his thigh. Halo stiffened. I saw the color drain from her face beneath her tan. Officer Sterling, she said, jumping onto the dock. I wasn't expecting you until the 1st. The deadline was yesterday, Miss Rivera, the man said. He wasn't aggressive. He was bureaucratic, faceless. The worst kind of threat, because they hid behind policy. The Marina fees are 3 months in arrears, and the bank has contacted us regarding the lien on the vessel. They've initiated repossession protocols. I have a student, she said, her voice rising, losing its captain's calm. She stepped between the man and the boat, blocking me from his view. This is a charter. I can pay you half now, and the rest when the course is done. I just need 2 weeks. I can't accept partial payment anymore, Halo. You know the rules. The board is cracking down. My boss is breathing down my neck. We're chaining the prop tonight. You can't leave the slip. You can't do that. This is my livelihood. If I can't sail, I can't pay. You're sinking me. She was shouting now. Panic. It was the same panic I heard in the voices of men holding hostages, the panic of a cornered animal realizing the walls were closing in. People on the nearby boats were looking. A couple sipping wine on a catamaran 2 slips down stopped talking to watch. I stepped off the boat. I didn't rush. I moved with the slow, deliberate speed of a predator who doesn't want to startle the prey. I adjusted my posture, loosening my shoulders, uncrossing my arms. Open. Officer, I said. My voice was low, dropping into my professional register. It was a baritone rumble, calm, authoritative, and utterly reasonable. It was the voice that made people put down guns. The man turned to me, surprised. Sir, this doesn't concern you. I'm the charter client, I said, Coleson Walker, and it concerns me if my training is interrupted. I stepped between Halo and the officer. I didn't block him physically. I just created a triangle of conversation. I angled my body so he had to look at me, breaking his lock on her. I became the new focal point. Miss Rivera is providing a premium service, I said smoothly. If you chain the prop, you interrupt a commercial contract. That creates a liability for the Marina. I'd have to file for a refund, plus damages for lost time and travel expenses. My lawyers are very enthusiastic about breach of contract. The officer blinked. He looked at his clipboard, then back at me. He shifted his weight. He was uncomfortable. He didn't want to fight. He just wanted to clear his list. Sir, the rules are clear. The lien holder? I understand the rules, I said, nodding sympathetically. I validated him. You have a job to do. You have pressure from your board. You need to secure the asset. I respect that. You're between a rock and a hard place. I paused, letting the empathy land. But you also need to maintain the Marina's reputation for high-end charters. Chaining a boat with a client aboard looks bad. It looks unstable. It scares away the tourists. And frankly, dealing with my legal team will be a lot more paperwork than extending a grace period. I pulled out my phone. I didn't look at it. I kept eye contact with him. How about this? I will personally guarantee the docking fees for the duration of my stay. Paid up front. Today, right now. In exchange, you give Miss Rivera a 30-day grace period on the lien notification. You tell the bank the vessel is under a secured commercial contract, which pauses the seizure order. That gets you your money, it keeps the bank happy, and it lets me finish my course. Everyone wins. The officer looked at me. He looked at Halo, who was staring at me with her mouth slightly open, her fists clenched at her sides. He sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. The bank won't just take a word, Sterling said, his voice losing its official edge. They need paper. They need proof of funds. I'll draft a letter of engagement, I said immediately, stating, the Kestrel is critical to an ongoing training operation, and I'll provide a proof of wire transfer for the fees. I'll email it to your office and copy the bank's legal department. It gives you cover. Sterling hesitated. He looked at his watch. If I have the wire confirmation by 5 p.m., I can hold off on the chain. But the bank, they're sharks, Mr. Walker. I can only buy you 30 days. 30 days is all we need, I said. Fine, Sterling grunted. Get it done. He turned and walked away, his heels clicking on the wood. Halo slumped against a piling. The fight went out of her, leaving her looking small and exhausted. She looked at me. You just paid $2,000 for me. I paid for my lesson, I said. I can't learn to sail if we're chained to the dock. I can't pay you back. Not yet. I didn't ask you to. Why did you do that? She asked, her voice shaking. You don't even know me. You're a client. This isn't your problem. I know you, I said. I know you respect the wind. I know you don't cut corners on safety. I know you double-check every shackle. And I know what it looks like when someone is drowning. She looked away, wiping her eyes angrily with the back of her hand. I'm not drowning. Everyone drowns sometimes, Halo. Even captains. The trick is knowing when to grab the line. I reached into my bag and pulled out a dry hoodie I kept for emergencies. I handed it to her. Here, you're shivering. Adrenaline crash? She took it. She held it for a second, looking at the fabric like it was a foreign object. Then, she pulled it on. It swallowed her frame. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me. Just teach me how to dock this thing without hitting the pilings. That's all I want. The dynamic shifted after that. We weren't just teacher and student anymore. We were allies. The professional distance evaporated, replaced by a quiet, shared understanding. We spent the next week prepping for the final exam, a 3-day open ocean passage to the dry Tortugas and back. We worked in silence mostly, but it was a comfortable silence. We anticipated each other's moves. I knew when she wanted the jib trimmed. She knew when I needed coffee. We ate dinner on the deck under the stars, grilled fish and cheap wine in plastic cups. Why did you quit? She asked one night. Negotiating. I didn't quit. I'm on sabbatical. You're not going back, she said. It wasn't a question. She was reading me now. I looked at the dark water lapping against the hull. I lost one, I said. The words came out before I could stop them. I hadn't told anyone. A kid. 19. He was scared. He had a gun, but he was just a kid. I thought I had him. I thought I had established rapport. I promised him he'd be safe. I took a drink of wine. It tasted like vinegar. And then the SWAT team breached. Someone got trigger happy. He panicked. He jumped. I looked at her. I promised him. And my voice wasn't enough to save him. Halo put her cup down. She didn't say, I'm sorry. She didn't offer platitudes. She didn't try to fix it. The wind shifted, she said quietly. What? Sometimes you do everything right. You trim the sails, you check the rigging, you read the chart, you do everything the book says. And the wind shifts. A rogue wave hits. and you lose the mast. She looked at me, her eyes reflecting the mast light. It's not your fault the wind shifted, Coleson. You can't control the ocean. You can only sail the boat you're in. I looked at her. In the moonlight, she looked fierce and soft all at once. She understood the weight of responsibility. She carried it every day. I feel like I've been treading water ever since, I admitted. Then swim, she said. Don't tread. Swim. She reached across the small table and covered my hand with hers. Her palm was rough, calloused, scarred from line burns. It felt real. It felt like an anchor in a storm. You're a good sailor, she said. You anticipate the shifts. You just need to trust the boat. I turned my hand over, interlacing my fingers with hers. We sat there for a long time, the boat rocking gently beneath us. I didn't try to kiss her. It wasn't about that yet. It was about holding the line, the final exam. We were 20 miles offshore. The forecast called for 15 knots of wind from the northeast. Perfect sailing weather. The forecast was wrong. The squall hit us out of nowhere. A black wall of cloud that swallowed the horizon and dropped the temperature 10 degrees in seconds. The wind jumped from 15 to 40 knots in the blink of an eye. The sea turned from blue to an angry, churning gray. "Reef the main!" Halo shouted, her voice cutting through the rising howl. I scrambled to the mast. The boat was heeling over violently, the rail buried in the churning water. I fought the canvas, pulling the reefing line, my fingers slipping on the wet dacron. "Hold on!" she screamed. A wave crashed over the bow, soaking me instantly. I locked my legs around the mast, cranking the winch. Bang! The sound was like a gunshot. The shackle on the jib sheet exploded. The metal pin sheared under the immense pressure. The jib sail started to flog, whipping violently in the wind like a giant, angry bird, the heavy metal clew swinging like a mace. "The sheet is gone!" I yelled. "Take the helm!" Halo commanded, unclipping her harness. "Keep her nose into the wind! I have to go forward and secure the sail before it tears itself apart or cracks the mast." "It's too dangerous," I shouted. "I'll go." "You don't know the knot," she yelled back, her eyes wild but focused. "You steer. Keep it steady, Walker. Do not let us broach. If we turn broadside to these waves, we roll." She clipped her safety harness onto the jackline running along the deck and ran forward, crouching low. I grabbed the wheel. It was fighting me, kicking like a living thing. The rain was blinding. Horizontal sheets of water that stung my face. I couldn't see Halo. I could only see the white shape of the sail thrashing in the darkness. Focus, I told myself. Tactical, calm. Breathe. Control the variable. I watched the wind indicator. I watched the compass. I felt the boat. I steered into the waves, feathering the wheel, keeping the boat flat enough for Halo to work, but not so flat that we lost momentum and stalled in the trough. It was a delicate, violent dance. I saw Halo at the bow. She was wrestling the sail, a small figure against the chaos. She got the sail down. She was tying it off with gasket ties. Then the boat dropped into a deep trough. A massive wave broke over the deck, green water sweeping everything. Halo. For a second, she was gone, buried in white water. My heart stopped. The world narrowed to a single point of terror. Then the water cleared. She was still there, hanging on to the pulpit, her harness line pulled taut, saving her from being washed overboard. She scrambled back to the cockpit, soaking wet, gasping for air, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. She fell into the cockpit. "You okay?" I asked, my voice steady, though my hands were shaking on the wheel so hard I thought I might snap the spokes. "I'm good," she wheezed, wiping blood and salt from her eyes. "Good holding, Walker. You kept her straight." She looked at me. Her hair was plastered to her face. She looked terrified and exhausted and exhilarating. "We need to get back," I said. "The rudder feels sluggish. I think we took damage on the linkage." "Agreed." We limp home under the mainsail. Storm tactics. We sailed back in silence, the storm slowly dying behind us as we neared the coast. We worked as a single unit. I anticipated her commands before she gave them. She trusted me to execute them. We didn't need words. We had the boat. We docked at midnight. The Marina was quiet, the storm having passed, leaving the air scrubbed clean and smelling of ozone. We tied up the lines. We coiled the ropes. We hosed down the salt. We didn't speak until the boat was secure. We went down to the cabin. It was warm, dry, the lantern casting a golden glow on the wood. Halo sat on the bench seat, shivering violently. The adrenaline was crashing. We could have lost the rig, she whispered, if that jib had caught the spreaders. But we didn't, I said. I grabbed a towel and sat next to her. I began to dry her hair. It was an intimate gesture, domestic and tender, a stark contrast to the violence of the last few hours. She leaned into the towel, closing her eyes. I got the notice today, she said, her voice muffled by the fabric. Before we left, from the bank. They're not accepting the grace period. They claim the charter contract isn't sufficient collateral without proof of long-term funds. They want the full balance by Monday or they take the Kestrel. She pulled the towel away and looked at me. Her eyes were red-rimmed. $50,000. I can't raise it. This course was my last shot. I'm going to lose her. Coleson, I'm going to be a captain without a ship. I stopped drying her hair. I looked at her. I saw the fighter who had climbed onto a pitching bow in a gale. I saw the woman who had taught me to feel the wind. No, I said. You're not. You can't pay it, she said fiercely, her pride flaring up. I won't let you. You already paid the dock fees. I am not a charity case. I know, I said. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering a partnership. What? I have savings, I said. From 5 years of hazard pay I never spent because I was too busy working. I want to buy in. 50% stake in the charter business. I handle the books, the marketing, and the negotiations with the harbor and the bank. You handle the sailing and the instruction. You want to buy half my boat? I want to invest in a sure thing, I said. I saw you out there today. You didn't panic. You didn't freeze. You did the job. That's the kind of partner I want. But the money, I'll wire it tomorrow. It won't clear for 48 hours, but I can get a proof of funds letter from my broker. The bank will accept a pending wire transfer if I sign a guarantee. But you're a crisis negotiator. You live in the city. I'm quitting, I said. The decision settled in my chest. Heavy. And right. I'm done. Talking people off ledges. I want to be here. I want to sail. I want to teach. I took her hand. I want to be where you are. She stared at me. You're crazy. You barely survived a squall. I'm calm, I corrected. I've never been calmer. She looked at my hand holding hers. Then she looked at my face. She searched for a lie and found none. You'd stay? I'd stay. She didn't say yes immediately. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a set of keys, the keys to the boat's main hatch and the ignition. She pressed them into my palm. Partner, she whispered. I leaned in. I kissed her. It tasted of salt and relief and survival. It wasn't a desperate kiss. It was a steady one. A promise. 2 days later, beat 10. The sun was blinding on the white fiberglass. I stood on the dock, wearing a fresh polo shirt with Kestrel charters embroidered on the chest, a rush order I had picked up that morning. Halo was on the deck, prepping for our first joint client, a family from Ohio who wanted a sunset cruise. Officer Sterling walked by. He looked tired, but relieved. Morning, Mr. Walker. Miss Rivera. Morning, I said. The bank has the wire confirmation. The lien is lifted. Paperwork is on your desk. Good, he said. My boss was asking. Keep her floating, Walker. Halo popped her head up from the companionway. She looked at me. She smiled. It was a bright, dazzling smile that rivaled the sun on the water. Ready to cast off, first mate? She teased. Aye, Captain, I said. I hopped aboard. I grabbed the stern line. Coleson? She said softly. Yeah? She didn't say anything for a second. She just looked at the boat, then at the horizon, then at me. Hold the line, she said, while I show them the ropes. I've got it, I said. I cast the line off the cleat. The boat drifted gently away from the dock, catching the wind. I felt the vibration of the hull under my feet. It felt like a heartbeat. I wasn't running anymore. I was exactly where I was supposed to be.